For us, it is day in, day out across categories of DeFi, RWA, NFTs. We keep looking at it. We keep talking about it every day in our team discussions. And we also, I said earlier, we immersed in this
Hmm.
place. So when a new founder comes, we ask all the questions whether they covered well from all aspects of regulatory compliance. If they're not, we will fill that.
Hmm.
We will fill those gaps when they're building not only the regulatory stack of a product, even product-led growth. From a growth aspect also, how much ever for the GTM to be successful for a shorter PMF, we also do a lot of work putting things within the product stack itself so that it gets optimized overall for them.
Right. So, because you work so closely with these Web3 startups and platforms, you've been monitoring perhaps the market as well. I would love to understand from you, what are the niches according to you that will really do well in this particular bull run? If somebody is thinking about building a product in the Web3 space, what would be your perhaps top three niches within Web3 that you would say, according to you, would do well and you would advise them to perhaps build in those niches?
So the digital assets, either it's asset backed by real world assets or assets that are speculative and driven by the uh, uh, value, that perceived value of the user. In both this, there is a uptick, there is a uptrend that we see. But we specialize in the real world asset tokenization category. So even within that, financial asset, not the commodity or a real estate. So we are seeing after all the ETF approvals, tokenized fund coming into the market. So we see all the asset managers across the globe. They want the money to and the liquidity to be available moving freely in a tokenized form. So we believe there is going to be momentum and a lot more action in that area. So we invite founders who are excited about it, want to solve problems within that domain to work with us, and we are more than willing to work with them on this space. That's the first one. Maybe the second trend we would call is the compliance. Compliance, what we mean by compliance is because of the CDB, central bank digital currency, Basel, and all those discussions going on, BIS, international settlements, which is advising governments to come up with their sovereign CBDCs. There is going to be a kind of integration layers between the Web3 and normal financial industry. There are a lot of problems, a lot of work to be done in that case for these two coming together. That's another space we invite entrepreneurs to work with us, and we are more than willing to work with them to making a digital currency and digital asset both as part of everyday lifestyle.
All right. Okay. I think that's a very good way to sort of put it. Again, if you had to, because we are talking about, your perspective and your experience that you've gained by working along these startups and monitoring the market, if you had to give some advice perhaps to startups that are navigating the, various challenges that are there in the Web3 space, what would be your advice to them?
So startups, the challenging is they first finding out their first investor because they know their resources. But it's costly. Costly in the sense it's a game. There are so many analogies. You are jumping out of the cliff, building your plane, and you have to land soft land it. So that's a nightmare for first generation entrepreneurs. Even if somebody has done and had success in the past, it's not guaranteed their next venture is going to be successful. So the calculated moves and the decision that they make every day has to be vetted dispassionately. So for that, they need a venture studio support. And our venture studio today also have partners who are willing to put in capital. Because we are doing so much of due diligence on our side, and they are looking as a TBI, a technology business incubators. Some of them who are working with us, their ability to raise funds uh, up to $250,000 in their first year is highly possible compared to someone who wants to do trial and error and fail and learn themselves. So it's always better to work with studios like us, venture studios like us, than trying out all themselves, learning the hard way. So this is more fail-safe methodology than doing it themselves or trying or risking it all by themselves.
Right. I think this is again very good advice, for entrepreneurs who are perhaps building in this space. Now, zooming out a little bit, if you had to give, your perspective on the market currently, some people say that we've already entered a bull run. What is your take on this?
So Bitcoin as the uh, bellwether, we always look at Bitcoin, how it's being adopted by the institutions. What
Hmm.
is the retail participation? The metrics we always look for the whatever the millions of wallet holding beyond $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, or how much new wallets has been added and actively transacting on the chains, which
Hmm.
comes from the chain analysis, right? These are the metrics people follow, whether it's bull or a bear market. So tokenization, people are a lot of startup founders this year want to launch their tokens and raise their funding even before they actually make profit or a attribution margin or a contribution margin, showing that they are on the right track. So what we are telling them, they can always delay in terms of their token generation event, but can have their seed and private rounds done before they really open up for a token based fundraising. So that's an advice that we are giving to our cohort. They don't need to rush and launch their token, then convince and sustain the token value in whichever place they are listing it out. Because that model already, there was a time everybody launched tokens
Hmm.
and none of the tokens is able to retain its own value. Uh, so hybrid approach, we always say that taken a hybrid approach. So there are backers, not just because your token value will go up, be it speculative or non-speculative in nature or out of the utility that you're talking about, but I have a backer who is much more friendly to the crypto native founders than the traditional backers. So we are introducing, as I said, we are talking to at least two different syndicates, investor syndicates who are setting up funds in India and outside India. So we also take a lot of clues and advices and trends and ideas where they want to deploy their capital, then give the same sound advice to founders who are building through our venture studio.
Right. Right. Okay. So if any of the listeners want to get in touch with you and perhaps talk to you about seeking your help, how can they reach out to you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and there is a contact us button on our website. So it's just a Calendly link there. They can book my slot and have a uh, a conversation with me anytime. I'm open. I'm an open networker and collaborator. So we always available for founders to have a chat, and they can visit if they are in Bangalore. They can drop in to my office, can catch me.
Brilliant. Okay, so we are obviously running a little short on time, but I do want to ask you a few more questions. So I would love to one understand from you what are the kind of skill set, or what are the skills or knowledge that one should have if they feel they need to really make it in Web3. Do you have a perspective there?
Yeah. So everybody don't require to be as young as me in 40s, early 40s. They can be in 20s also doing a successful startup. Many of them have proven that. But what uh, kind of mental models they require is they should not be in rush to prove a point that they are here to build a unicorn. From a competency point of view, everybody is today needs to be a tech geek way. There is a book called The Geek Way, an exponential thinker and ecosystem builder.
Right.
So this exponential thinking, ecosystem builder, uh, and being a geek is necessary in the Web3. If we don't like to be a geek is not always writing code alone. Technically sound on what we are doing
Right.
is what the geek way means. So these are necessary qualities that we look and we ask people to nurture them in themselves to be a successful entrepreneur.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that is again, I do think that there are you do need to be a geek in the sense that you do need to be open to learning and unlearning if you're going to be coming into Web3, I think. But not everything has to be about being very sound technically, because this is a sector in itself, and people of all skill sets can really find their positioning here, and they can find their and make their professional career better and scale it without really being somebody who just codes.
Agree to the point that there is a scope for everyone to have carve out their own niche, but whatever niche they are carving out, let them be best at it. So the striving for excellence is necessary, not just Web3 in every field. Someone is picking up to build a career, be it entrepreneurial career or a professional tech career. So that nature would be very, very necessary, being best at it, becoming excellent at what they are doing. So a lot of learning, unlearning necessary in the journey. And so the baggages has to be dropped at one point if it's not working for them, and pick up the new skills and move on whichever is working. So that continuous learning, relearning, unlearning is part of the everyday routine.
Right. Can you recommend perhaps some, books or certain thought leaders that you feel our listeners would really gain from, and, you follow them, or you would highly recommend those resources?
Yeah, definitely. Chris Dixon, uh, some of the A16Z talking about S curve, extraction, ecosystem. Those are the some of the it's not just books, podcast
Right.
might be useful for your podcast is also you have spoken to various people and you have brought a lot of information that is useful content for many people.
Hmm.
I have spent in the last 1 week listening to at least three, four of them. Some
Oh,
of our
thank you.
friends have spoken. Okay, so other books is financial uh, market landscape change, right?
Right.
William uh, Monger, who has written Anatop, the Bitcoin person who actually educational person who teaches a lot about Bitcoin. So those are the books which will set your fundamental knowledge very clear what this technology is, uh, how powerful this technology, what impact it can bring, and how it should be leveraged by the founder so that they build a future internet which is more inclusive in nature and also more democratic in nature. And it is much more neutral and efficient than what we all have experienced as a Web 2. So it's a not one subject. They have to draw parallels
Right.
and learn how different domains are coming together, fusion overlap, and that overlap, the new models are emerging and arising out of that.
Right. I'll sure to like link these up in the description and the podcast links. And obviously I think everybody should know about A16Z and the kind of good essays, etc., that are available on the website. But if somebody does not, then you'll find the details in the description that we are going to push out once this podcast is out. So Yuvraj, this has been a very wonderful, very enlightening conversation from ranging from your services now to the trends in the space, obviously moving to resources as well. I would be amiss if I don't ask you this one question, which I ask everybody that comes on the show, and which is basically, what would be your advice to somebody who's like making a leap from Web 2 to Web 3? Because you've done something very similar. You used to work in fintech, and then you moved to Web 3. What would be your advice to somebody to really make that same leap and really start living on blockchain?
So the decentralization, the reason for me taking that leap is I've seen on the floor how the investment bankers lost their credibility and trust to the society had, the central custodians of funds, right? When uh, public could not take their own value wherever they have stored it.
Right.
Okay, so which is like a very watershed moment for whole industry itself. On the bank for which I used to work,
So, you would say that because of just the intrinsic value that this particular sector brings in, one should look at it.
yeah. So the decentralization and the decentralization of and putting the control back in the hands of the people who has to manage their own the value is necessary. That itself will make them to completely think from how centrally managed or central authority based systems. So the system design has to definitely, it's due for a correction, due for a change. And this technology is accelerating that change.
Right. I think that's a wonderful way to perhaps close this episode as well. I am very grateful that you could make the time and speak to us today, Yuvraj. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, as I'm re-emphasizing point, founders who are looking out for support, looking out for help in building their dream Web3 ventures or Web 2.5 ventures, uh, from whichever place they are from, irrespective of where their background they are coming from, they
Hmm.
can approach us, and we would be certainly spend time in giving whatever we have so far gained by building so many companies as co-builders with many international founders. Our international founders have come from a lot of good pedagogy, so we could definitely offer them without any string attached, so that their business models and business plan is at least uh, well thought through, whether they are building themselves or taking our support to build it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much once again for making the time to speak to me. This has been a wonderfully enlightening conversation.
Thank you, Darsha, again for having me. It's a great opportunity for us to share our thoughts and ideas with your audience.
Likewise, thank you so much.